Hi, and welcome back to the HaPi podcast. One of the big objectives of this podcast is to try and remove some of the barriers of knowledge sharing that can exist from time to time within our industries. I'm going to be speaking to a variety of different people who are in a position to offer those different solutions and are currently doing that. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hi everyone, so we're back for another episode of the HaPi podcast. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching or if you're listening online, we do appreciate you joining us today. And I am delighted, really delighted to welcome Sarah Brocq with us. Sarah is someone who I've been speaking to a little bit over the past few months. She is more well known to a couple of people who I work with at Evolve, but I've got to know Sarah a little bit over the past few weeks and months, and I was really keen for Sarah to come on and talk to me about a subject which is incredibly close to her heart, and how she has followed that through into a daily basis from a work perspective, and she's going to share a little bit about that just now. So Sarah, welcome, great to see you. Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me along. I'm really excited to be part of this because I've been watching some of the other podcasts and listening to some of the other podcasts, and they've been really insightful. So thank you. I'm honoured to be part of the clan, I guess.
Lovely, the clan, yeah, lovely stuff. Good, excellent. So as I try and do with everybody, Sarah, I do believe that on a podcast, everybody has a story, including me, but that's for another day, I suppose. But everybody has a story, and your story is one that I've got to learn a little bit about, and we're going to talk about a little bit about your career, because it is related to obviously to what we do within Evolve as well. I meant into where you're at the moment. So do you want to share a little bit about that, about your story? And then obviously laterally we'll get into talking about the kind of major reason as to why I wanted to invite you on here today.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, my story kind of goes back to connected with Evolve and with Chris Anderson. It goes back to, I think, 99 was probably the first time I met Chris. And I was coming to the end of my time, and it won't be 99, it would have been 2004. Sorry, I'm getting my dates. So it was my last year at uni, basically. And I remember thinking, I knew what I wanted to do. I'd been working in pharma as part of my degree, because my degree was in pharmaceutical chemistry. And I'd worked out that I didn't want to work in the labs because I'm quite a people person. And the idea of being stuck in front of a machine all day was just like filling me with dread. So I was like, what else can I do? And then I thought, heard all about sales. And I thought, pharma sales, this could be really good because I can still use my science, but I can still talk to people. So that's when I got in touch with Chris. And so then I Chris kind of helped me kind of get the experience that I needed. So telling me to get a bit of sales experience whilst I was still at uni, and then kind of launched me into my first career in Pfizer as soon as I left university. So kind of that's where I started my pharma career, I suppose. And then I've been within the pharmaceutical industry in sales in various topics, from diabetes to hepatitis C to oncology, for over 16 years, and loved it because I'm a bit of a geek in the fact that I like science and I like learning about different drugs and understanding why they work, and also helping people. That's something I'm really passionate about as well. And I'm really passionate about remembering the person at the end of why we're doing something. And that's kind of always what drove me to kind of get out of bed every day, I guess. So that was kind of my career, and I loved it. And then I had a baby in 2019. So had my year's maternity, and then was offered the opportunity of kind of taking voluntary redundancy came up because there was a big restructure going on at the company I was at. And so that kind of is where I left my pharma kind of field, I guess. But alongside that, for the past 10 years, for longer than that, but for the past 10 years, I've been working as an obesity advocate. So I've struggled with my weight for as long as I can remember, kind of in my adult life, really. Always trying various diets, eating plans, exercise plans, basically anything that was out there, I'd give it a go because I was looking for like the answer to try and help me live in a smaller body, basically. And during that time, I had opportunities to take part in various things. And the big thing for me was 10 years ago, I took part in a weight loss TV show. So this was one of these like transformational, they take you from doing nothing and being a big size to kind of obviously putting you through your paces and you kind of losing weight. So I lost 8.5 stone during that process. pretty life-changing, you know, pretty big
Very
thing.
much. Yeah.
And I went from doing no exercise to completing an Olympic distance triathlon at the end of my program. So,
Wow. Okay.
so that was pretty. I mean, I shocked myself at kind of what my body was capable of, you know, because for me, I didn't think that was something I would be possible to do. But now I kind of get that actually from a physical perspective, when people say to me, God, I couldn't do that, I'm like, well, you could if you wanted to, because it's all about mindset. And if you really want to do something like that, you can. You've just got to train and get your, you know, put your head in it. So I did the program, lost a lot of weight. And after the next couple of years after the program, I still continued to train hard. In fact, I did another Olympic distance triathlon. I used to run 5 and 10Ks all the time. But my weight started coming back on.
Right.
And it was during this period where I was kind of going, what is going on here? Because I started feeling like a failure, because I was like, clearly, you know, I've been told for such a long time that this is my fault. So I was like, well, what am I doing? I'm doing something wrong here. What, you know, what's going on? But I also thought, no, there's more to this. This isn't just as simple as like, I am eating the right things and I'm exercising enough. So what's going on? So I started kind of researching into obesity a little bit more. So reading some of the clinical papers and trying to understand the science a little bit more. And this is where I kind of uncovered some of the data around set point theory and metabolic adaptation. So this is where your body fights to get back to the highest weight that it's been, and it's all like a survival mechanism of like your body suddenly going, oh my goodness, that kind of protection that you had is gone, I need you to get back there. So it's a physiological response. So I was fighting against this physiological response that was happening in my body, and it does it in ways that you just wouldn't even imagine. So it can make you feel colder, so that you start wanting to eat more to get warm, or it makes you feel hungrier, or it makes you crave certain foods. You know, it's literally mind-blowing what your body does to kind of get those calories in you. So these things are completely like out of your control, really. And that's where understanding that was a big kind of like game changer for me in my mindset, because suddenly I realized that this wasn't just my fault. You know, there's lots of things that are making this you know, me living in a large body, putting weight on, is making it something I can't just control on my own. And that's where I started kind of getting more and more involved in sharing what I'd found, really, and people to understand that if you're living with obesity, that it's not your fault, and actually there's lots of things we can do to support you, and please don't feel alone, and please don't blame yourself, and kind of all those kind of messages. So that's something I'm really passionate about doing, and kind of has led me, I guess, to the point now where I'm doing huge amounts of work within the obesity space, and have now made it kind of my full-time passion project and work, I guess.
So, good. It's a hugely emotive subject, isn't it? You know, obesity is, and obviously it's a major discussion point across the UK, rightly and wrongly, maybe in some occasions. Before we go into talking about the second part, but have you found that obviously the way that social media works and the way that people just feel that they have a voice for absolutely everything now, okay, again, rightly or wrongly, but have you found that as you've been an advocate for obesity, that you've seen maybe two different extremes, Sarah, of people's reactions to what you're doing? In terms of, you've seen people who have been hugely supportive of what you're doing, to people that have been critical and potentially been quite nasty, you know, about what it is you're doing. Have you experienced that, and how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we face stigma about weight every single day of our lives as someone living with obesity. You know, people have always got something to say or think they know about obesity, because and I always come back to the fact that it's not really their fault either, because the media and the messaging has been for so long that this is a personal responsibility and it's about eating less and moving more. And so for you to say that it's anything more than that, people's minds get blown and go, well, no, it's not. Like, you just need to, and they'll all know someone that's lost some weight by going to Slimming World or going to the gym or so they'll just think, well, just go and do that because so-and-so did it and it worked for them. And I don't disagree that diets don't work, because diets do work. People do lose weight and everybody can lose weight. The hard part for someone living with obesity is maintaining that weight loss. And that's the bit that people can't get their head around. They just assume that people just give up and go, right, fine, and go back to their old habits, behaviors, etc. And in a way, that is what's happening. but it's because of your body's physiological response, because of the environment, because of the social environment, because of everything that's going on. That's the reality. And so you can't really do a lot to change that without interventions coming in, and this is where people can't do it alone. So it is hard because you're fighting against that messaging constantly. I mean, only this week in the press, there was an article in the said, you know, it's fat shaming is the only way we're going to cure the obesity crisis. And it's kind of like, how someone thinks that's an acceptable thing to even have as a title. You know, fat shaming is bullying. So you're basically saying you're going to bully someone into doing something that actually their body is physiologically, you know, obesity is a chronic condition. So would you be bullying someone with asthma or cancer? Or, you know, no, you would not. And everyone would be absolutely outraged if someone wrote a heading about that. So why do we think it's acceptable to do that about obesity? So yes, all the time I'm getting challenged. I mean, I was speaking in Parliament this week, and there was a tweet that went out about a picture of a few of us sat in the panel, and the comments underneath that were just, you know, horrendous. And you just kind of go, I'm used to it now. And I just kind of, you know it's just the way that society thinks and feels. And I just know I've got a huge task ahead of me of trying to change that narrative. But yes, there is huge support out there as well from people that do understand the science, and people that do understand or have been through similar journeys to me, that know that they've tried everything, that they're doing everything that they possibly can to support themselves, and it's not working, and they're still really struggling. You know, people are kind of saying, thank you for actually giving us a voice, Sarah. Thank you for getting people to understand that this isn't a moral failing of me, and this is actually more than that. So it is a real mixed bag, and it's a constant kind of, you know, battle in a way, but it's one that I'm so passionate about, and I think that's why you've got to have the passion, because if it wasn't something you were passionate about, you would have given up quite some time ago.
That is clear from you, Sarah. That there's no doubt that comes through from you. That the passion that you have behind this subject that you've taken on. We'll talk a little bit about, you know, about all obesity works and how it works and all about obesity. Sorry, and I think that is the part. Any subject like this, whether it be obesity, for example, there's a lot of publicity around the menopause at the moment, and the pros of, for example, social media behind that is that you can get a message out there. You can get a message out there about obesity in such a positive way, try and get that endorsement, get that support. But obviously the con of that is what you've experienced, you know, but you know, you obviously seem to brush that off very easily, which is good, but some people can. And that's the part where, when I was thinking about talking to you about this, that hats off to you, honestly, because I think it is really, you two polar opposites in terms of reaction to this, and we see it, but I think it's so important in any subject like this to understand, you know, what is going on, you know, behind somebody. You've been on that side where you've gone down the diet route, you've gone down the fitness route, and then, you know, that's not been the reasons behind it. And there's so many people on Instagram, so many diets and fads and such like just now. You know, I'm struggling, not going about me here, but I'm, you know, struggling a bit of pain in my back at the moment. If I'm on Instagram, there'd be about 20 people tell me how to sort that out at the moment. Yeah, you do this, you do that, you do the next thing. It's not always, you know, just as straightforward as that, and you've highlighted that. So the passion that you have for this is exactly why I wanted you to come on and talk about it. So, and so you've taken that on, and you've carried that passion on to what you do now, which is called All About Obesity. So talk me through and let people know a little bit about what All About Obesity is, and how it works in the work that you're currently doing.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I heard a quote from Stephen Bartlett recently, and, you know, I love his work and what he's doing. And he made a statement in that he'd turned his pain into his purpose. And I kind of feel like I've done that. And I feel like that's exactly what I've done, because I've spent most of my life hating the way I looked, hating who I was, you know, hating the fact I lived with obesity. And I've kind of gone, do you know what? I'm now going to turn that pain into why I'm going to make sure that other people don't have to go through what I've gone through. And that's why I've launched All About Obesity. Because what I recognized was that when you look at the third sector, so the charitable sector and other not-for-profits, and you look at other long-term health conditions, they all have these huge multi-million pound charities, organizations supporting people with conditions. When you look at obesity, there are very few organizations, and they're all very small and underfunded and under-supported organizations trying to get the message out there. And I just thought, this is crazy to think that obesity is one of the things that affects so many people in this country. And there is very little support or anyone really doing anything in that kind of third sector to support people. It kind of just blew my mind. And I was a bit like, what is going on here? Now, I think there's a reason for this, a couple of reasons. I think the first thing comes down to stigma and the fact that people feel like obesity is, and that people have chosen to do this to themselves. So therefore, why on earth are we supporting people that have basically, you know, just sat and eaten too much and not exercised enough and got themselves into this situation?
Yeah.
And I get that. Like I say, I get why people think that. But the reality is, obesity is a chronic, long-term, relapsing condition. So we need to start treating it like that. And we would never withhold treatment for people with any other long-term condition. So why are we doing that with obesity? Because there are some great medications coming through. There's obviously bariatric surgery and other interventions that have been around for a while, and they're showing us that they are cost effective and they do change people's lives, and they can make such a difference to people's quality of life. And kind of blows my mind. All of obesity has kind of been born to be, the way I talk about it is, because people get it this way, is that I aspire for us to be like an obesity version of Diabetes UK. Okay. Now, we all know Diabetes UK is a phenomenal organisation supporting people with diabetes. They drive research in diabetes. They support people with diabetes. They've obviously got that voice about people living with diabetes. And that's what I want all about obesity to be. So one day I would love for us to be, you know, having money, enough money to drive research and have our own projects going on. We want to be like that trusted go-to place. So when you think of anything obesity, you kind of go, oh, I'll go on All About Obesity and see what I can find. You know, I want primary care to be referring their patients or people living with obesity to us to get support, to get advice, to not feel alone. Because I think the thing with obesity is that you do feel alone. You feel alienated. You feel like you're different. And to actually realize that you're not, and actually a lot of the stuff you're going through, other people are too, is really powerful. So that we want to provide that support for people as well. So kind of that's why we have created All About Obesity. Very much in our infancy. You know, we launched in March of this year. And the biggest, I suppose, hurdle has been funding. And again, I think this comes down to the stigma. You know, I think, you know, if I'd launched a not-for-profit or third sector organisation about children or puppies, I think we would have been in a very different situation. But, you know, when it comes to obesity, people just don't have that same empathy and that same kind of drive to help and support people. So that's kind of the challenge at the moment, is kind of getting to that point that we can do all the amazing things that we want to do, because we've got loads of kind of things that we really want to drive. But I suppose our main things are, we want to change the narrative. We want to start working on removing some of that stigma around obesity, getting people to understand that obesity is not a choice. People can't get their heads around that. But it's...
you were saying, as you and I were speaking this week, you were down at Parliament this week as well. So I mean, I obviously follow you on LinkedIn, and I encourage other people to follow you on LinkedIn as well. And you are you're involved in different seminars. You've been involved in speaking recently about it. But from a Westminster point of view and a government point of view, are you seeing that support from government? We're well aware of the economic situation that we're in. We know that. We recognise that. But are you seeing that support there, maybe financially and in other ways from government and other kind of larger organisations?
It comes in waves. So during COVID, I would say the only positive thing that came out of COVID was the fact that obesity seemed to get this highlight in the fact that we need to be supporting people living with obesity, because they were at much higher risk of contracting COVID and having worse outcomes of COVID. And because Boris got COVID, the Prime Minister getting COVID, and he had worsening or worse kind of conditions to someone that didn't have obesity, it made him realise that actually his weight was probably one of the contributing factors to why he suffered as much as he did. So that was a real kind of as bad as it sounds, a positive step in a way, because it kind of made the people go, right, we need to look at this. So there was a kind of positive shift for a while, and the obesity strategy came out, and there was some, great steps forward there around changing some of the policies around like the food environment, because that does, play a part in this. The fact that we can access food and actually, these high fat, salt and sugar foods being cheaper and more accessible than actually healthy foods plays a huge part in people's behaviors and kind of access to foods, etc. But what we're now seeing in the past 12 months is that there's been a huge reversal on this. And actually the £100 million that they had promised to the obesity sector this year and for obesity services and support has been and they've said it's to help with the COVID scenario. So it kind of makes no sense to me. So it's like, because of COVID, that highlighted obesity was such an issue. Now they've taken the money back, and we're now kind of looking to see whether we're going to get any money next year. Now, £100 million sounds a lot of money, but it's really not when it comes to actually helping and supporting. You look at other chronic conditions, and they're getting a lot more than that. So no, I would say the government really aren't recognizing obesity with the with the power that they need to. They are still very much kind of like marred by the stigma, and I still think that they go back to that whole personal responsibility, and actually people just need to do things differently, and they don't really see that they could have a huge part in helping to change some of this from a government perspective, and just access to services. So in this country, weight management services come under tier 3 and 4. They are the specialist weight management services, and only 50% of the country have access to them.
Right. Okay.
So that blows my mind that in 2022, 50% of the country can't even get access to the services that are available. And so for me, it's kind of like, we need to change things like that. People need to be able to get access to support if they need it. They need to be able to get access to these kind of great new products that are coming through that are actually changing the physiological makeup of someone's body to allow them to lose weight and maintain it. And really supporting people. And that's just not happening. So no, I mean, why I go is to kind of ensure that lived experience voice comes through in those conversations, because I think too often we talk about people and forget that there are people. And so I'm just always there in the room going, can we remember the me's, the people living with obesity right now? And not just talking about prevention all the time, because prevention's great, but we need to talk about the people living with obesity too. And so it's that kind of piece that I'm trying to bring in, and I do it, in government. NHS England, I'm involved in various projects, Department of Health, so OHID now. So it is great. They are including the lived experience voice, which I think is a really positive step. But we just need to move that to the next phase of actually implementing things that are going to make a difference and trying to get more funding involved.
Yeah, and I mean, you're obviously trying to network in all the available channels that you possibly can, from government to other organisations, and as you said, raising the awareness, not just of, well, obviously of obesity, but in terms of what can be done to help people, because there'll be perhaps people watching this that say, what I'm really struggling with. What can I do? What is out there for me to to access, to help me with this, to help me understand what is going on with my body? You've given the experience of, you've tried the diets, you did all the fitness stuff, but for some reason something else was going on, and there might be people who are very similar situations who don't understand it, and they need that information and they need that support. So listen, I mean, you're still infancy, but what you've done in that period of time is hugely, it has to be admired, and keep going with that is my kind of advice to you on that, because the penny will drop with people who go, yeah, I get it, and we need that support, or we need to give you that support as well. So just to kind of wrap things up, really, from that side of things, say that people watching this just now, what advice would you give to people who are listening or watching just now, perhaps on either side, maybe starting a charity, or struggling just now with the challenges that you've experienced yourself? What advice would you like to offer people just now?
But I think there's kind of two prongs. So I think for people living with obesity or kind of struggling with weight and feeling alone is to say, please don't feel alone, because you're really not. And please kind of engage the website. You can contact us through there. So please do, and tell us what you need, because we're still growing. It's like we want to know what support we can offer people. So please get in touch, and we will support you. And just, it's not your fault and you're not alone. So that's really important. I want people to know that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think from a building of an organization perspective, I have come across so many hurdles since starting out on this mission. But I suppose for me, it's kind of like in my head, I keep telling myself that nothing good comes easy. That actually the people that you see that are successful in life have taken huge risks. And that's what I keep trying to tell myself, is that this, Sarah, keep going, because you are trying to do something great for other people. You're trying to change the world, that people living with obesity live in. You're trying to change all of that. So keep going, because it is going to come to fruition at some point. And I think that's my kind of driver, is that just keeping that passion and your reason why you're doing something there, so that when you are at the point where you're going, God, I've got no money left in my bank account, and why, what am I doing? Let me just run and get a job again and kind of be safe. It's like, just remember why you're doing this. And I think that's the most important thing. And that's the thing that's kept me going, as much as it's kind of my whole lifestyle and it has changed so much. But this is what keeps me kind of that fire alive in me, and is making me, doesn't feel like work anymore, because it's my passion. And I think that's really important. So if you've got that in you, just keep it going, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, you and I talked about this. Following your passion is a key thing. And I think anybody who's seen, you talk about Stephen Bartlett, you talk about other people who have clearly followed their passion, in terms of what they want to do, and it's been successful. And there's no doubt that in times where these guys who we now see online who are successful have gone through very, very similar challenges. You might not necessarily get to level Stephen Bartlett, but get to the point where you are making a huge difference to people's lives on a daily basis by providing advice, support. I'm sure sometimes if you maybe feel like a bit of a counsellor on occasions as well, and that is no bad thing, because my goodness, nowadays and what we've come through with COVID, and what we're experiencing just now, people need other people to talk to, whether it be about obesity, whether it be about other challenges in life, and to have somebody like yourself who is there to support people is to be admired. So you do talked about the website, so just tell people what's the website, where can people go?
Yeah, so our website is allaboutobesity.org. So come and have a look. As I say, we've got nowhere near as much as we want on there, but we want to know what people need. So that's really important. So you can get to us through a contact us form. Tell us what you need, tell us what you like, and hopefully we can start developing that more. But yeah, we're on social media as well, through Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. So give us a follow and see how we get on. Watch this space.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but without doubt, and I am, and we do follow that, and take a keen eye in terms of what's going on. Sarah, listen, this has been really good. It's been informative, very open, which I think is key for people watching this just now, because as I said, there will be people watching and listening who are experiencing some of the challenges that you've highlighted. So allaboutobesity.org, great place to go and to get some support and see some support. Sarah, thank you so much for taking time with me today.
Thanks so much.
No, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. And we look forward to sharing some more stuff in the next series of the podcast. Bye for now.